إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. My dear respected brother Engineer Abdul Aziz Al-Duwaij and my dear respected brother Mr. Mukhtar Maruf Sahab, all the organizers, elders, ulama, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It always gives me great pleasure to come to Kuwait, and this is my, I think, third or fourth trip to Kuwait. And I was telling my brother Manshauddin Sahab that two countries when I go to, I feel as if I have gone home. One is Kuwait and one is South Africa. Both these places, when I land there, it's as if I have gone home, I'd say. Alhamdulillah, this is the effect of the affection and the love of all my brothers and sisters. And I am most grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who puts the love of people in each other's hearts. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always to keep our hearts together, inshallah. Today's topic is on conflict resolution, and we are looking at an Islamic approach to conflict resolution. I want to begin by making one statement. And that statement is that every single conflict is resolvable. I want you to keep this statement in your mind, because we sometimes tend to feel that there are some conflicts which have no resolution, it cannot be solved. I want you to understand this very clearly. Every single conflict, whether it's a conflict between two people in the home, whether it's a conflict in your workplace, whether it's a conflict inside a community, or whether it's a conflict between two nations, any level of conflict, every single conflict can be resolved. And they might say, well then, if that is so, then why don't they get resolved? We'll look at that, inshallah. The key thing is, if you are willing to resolve it, there is no conflict in the world which cannot be resolved. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as far as this ummah is concerned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined the basis of our brotherhood. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in two different places in Surah Al-Anbiya and Surah Al-Mu'minun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna hadhihi ummatukum ummatan wahida wa ana rabbukum fa'budun. And then in Surah Al-Mu'minun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna hadhihi ummatukum ummatan wahida wa ana rabbukum fattaqun. These two ayat alone are worthy of spending a lot of time understanding why in one place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said exactly the same things, but He ended with fa'budun, and in the other place He ended with fattaqun. But I will not go into those details now. One refers to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the basis on which we come together. Why do I call my brother Abdul Aziz Al-Duwaij, who is from a different country, who is from a different family, different qabila, different so many things? Why do I call him my brother? Why does he call me his brother? Not because of any similarities, except one, which is the most important of all things, all items that we can find common within ourselves, and that is that both of us are Muslims, that both of us worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the basis on which this ummah was formed. The course that we are doing, I wrote a book for this course, and that book is available free. It's on Kindle for $1, and that's $1 because Kindle doesn't take it for free. Otherwise, the book is available as a free download from our website and from various places, and I think many people have seen this book. And that book is called The Leadership Lessons from the Life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I began that book by saying that the reason why the Islamic calendar starts from the Hijrah and not from the birthday of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or from the day he passed away, or from any other day, it starts from the migration Because that migration was the birth of the Ummah. The birth of a nation which is based on faith. A brotherhood of faith. Not a brotherhood of race, not a brotherhood of nationality, not a brotherhood of color, not a brotherhood of language, not a brotherhood of family or qabila. A brotherhood of faith. We are Muslims, and we are the brothers and sisters of every Muslim on the face of the planet, no matter where they live, no matter what they look like, no matter if they are rich or poor, no matter anything. We are their brothers and we are their sisters, and our heart beats for them and our body pains for them. Because, why? Because we are one ummah. Why? Because we are based on the same faith, and that faith is Islam. And that is why the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said that this ummah is like one body. When the head pains, the whole body knows that pain. The whole body feels that pain. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove the pain of this ummah. I want to state before you two hadith, where Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu reported from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he said the meaning of which is, beware of suspicion. For suspicion is the greatest falsehood. Do not try to find fault with each other. Do not spy on one another. Do not vie and compete with one another. Do not envy one another. Do not be angry with one another. Do not turn away from one another. And be slaves of Allah, brothers to one another, as you have been enjoined. Surah Al-Hujurat has all of these things as ayats from the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you look at this hadith enumerates all the things which if we do, we will not have conflicts, or if we have a conflict, it will be resolved. Our problem is we don't study the hadiths of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we study them only for ma'lumat, only for knowledge. But we don't bring it into our lives. And that's the reason why I keep focusing on practice of the religion, not simply talking about Islam. And that is why when you have come here to listen to the lecture on conflict resolution, before I go any further, I want you to do an exercise right now. And that exercise is, I want you to think of the person, the individual man or woman with whom you have a conflict right now. I want you to think of that person. Somebody you don't talk to, somebody you don't like, somebody you will not go to a place if that person is invited, someone whose house you will not go to, someone who you will not invite home, and may Allah protect us, for some of them they are our own blood brothers and sisters. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But alhamdulillah, no problem. I want you to actually think of that person. And when we finish this lecture, I want you to do one thing. And that thing is, I want you to phone them and tell them that you have no conflict with them anymore. If you are ready to do that, then I suggest you continue to sit here. If you are not ready to do that, then do yourself a favor. And that favor is that leave now. Because, I'll tell you seriously, the reason I'm saying leave now is not because I want to be rude to you. The reason I'm saying leave now is because if you listen to this whole lecture, you are going to get a lot of knowledge which if you don't implement will become a hujjat against you on the day of judgment. You cannot then say, I did not know how to resolve the conflict. Because I'm going to teach you how to resolve the conflict. Right? So no matter how many years you haven't spoken to your brother, your sister, no matter what, if you filed a suit against them for some property or something, call your lawyer first and tell them, I'll pay your fees, forget the suit, withdraw the case. My brothers and sisters, listen to me very carefully. The point of the matter is that unless we apply this beautiful deen in our lives, it is not going to do anything for us. We are like a bunch of people who are in a dark room. We have a torchlight. We have a beautiful, powerful torchlight which has got 1,000 halogen bulb, 1,000 watts in it or something. But we are sitting in this dark room holding this torchlight in our hand. And then we are saying, why is it so dark? Why is it so dark? You don't need a rocket scientist to tell you why it's so dark. It's so dark because you don't want to light the light. I mean, you have the thing in your hand. All you need to do, press a button. You don't want to do that. It will be dark. It will be dark. And that torchlight is the application of this beautiful deen in our lives. I always say, whenever I teach anything, I say that Allah knows best, but most people who come to programs like this, which includes me and includes all of us, most people who come to programs like this already know enough Islam to go into Jannah without hisab. In terms of knowledge, we already know how to get into Jannah without any problem. But you know what? May Allah protect us, but you know what might become a problem for us? Not how much we know, but how much we apply. How much we apply. Even the non-Muslims know that the Muslim is supposed to pray 5 times a day. In my country, you go to India, you ask anybody on the road, how many times a day do Muslims pray? They will say 5 times. Anyone on the road, Hindu, Christian, anyone, they all know Muslims pray 5 times a day. They're supposed to pray 5 times a day. You know and I know how many times a day Muslims pray. Right? I don't want to list all of this, but I'm just saying that let us, when you have come here to listen to this lecture, please don't come here only to listen. Come here with the intention of application. And as I told you, my request to you is this. At the end of this lecture, that conflict in your life must finish. I want you to have a life without that conflict. I want you to have a life where that person who you never saw till today, who you did not used to speak to, you go and hug them and kiss them, and your brother will kiss you, and you will both be, your hearts will be together, and you will not have that conflict anymore. I want you to be in that situation. Do you like the idea of that? Yes or no? Yes. Inshallah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in a hadith reported in Bukhari and Muslim, he said a Muslim is the brother of a Muslim. He does him no wrong, nor does he let him down, nor does he despise him. Fear of Allah is here. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam pointed to his blessed chest, to his heart. He said, fear of Allah is here, fear of Allah is here, fear of Allah is here. And he pointed to his chest. And he said that it is evil enough that a Muslim should look down on his brother. For every Muslim is sacred to one another. His blood is sacred, his honor is sacred, his property is sacred. Allah does not look at your bodies or your forms or your deeds, but He looks at your hearts. My brothers and sisters, we are an ummah which is formed on the basis of faith. So therefore, what must we do? We must do our best to keep the ummah together. We are formed on the basis of faith, so therefore our job is to keep the hearts together. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. In Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the believers are brothers in Islam. So reconciliate between them, make reconciliation between your brothers, and fear the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you may receive Allah's mercy. Conflicts destroy brotherhood, and that is why this focus in Islam on keeping the hearts together, on resolving conflicts. To have a conflict, as my brother Mukhtar Maruf, he said 3 people, so I thought he was going to say 2 people and 1 shaitan, because that's how the conflict comes. That's the 3. 2 people and 1 shaitan. To have a conflict is natural. If there are 2 people, there is going to be a difference of opinion. A conflict is not necessarily, you grabbing somebody's throat. I mean, conflict is a difference of opinion. A conflict of opinion, difference of opinion. Alhamdulillah, if we operate with this difference of opinion according to the adabul ikhtilaf, the manners of conflict that we have been taught by our salaf, this difference of opinion actually brings the hearts closer together. It is a source of adhesiveness, of adhesion of the ummah. But the same difference of opinion, if we go away from the adabul ikhtilaf, it breaks hearts. It destroys brotherhood. Creates differences between us. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated in a hadith which is reported in Muwatta by Malik, where he reported from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says the doors of the garden of Jannah are open on Monday and Thursday. Every Muslim slave who does not associate anything with Allah is forgiven, except for the person who has enmity between himself and his brother. And it is said, leave these two until they have made a reconciliation. Leave these two until they have made a reconciliation. Imagine having this difference of opinion, having this conflict with your brother. You don't talk to him, he doesn't talk to you, and you die in that state. What is going to happen to you? What is going to happen to you? And believe me, these conflicts for most of us, if not all of us, are for matters of this dunya. You don't speak to your brother not because his deen is wrong. You don't speak to him not because he's doing something against Allah. You don't speak to him because you don't like something that he has done in this dunya. This stuff of this world which we are going to leave anyway. In another hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is reported to have said, the deeds of people are presented on 2 days, which is Monday and Thursday, and every believing slave would be granted pardon, forgiveness, except the one in whose heart there is rancor, in whose heart there is anger, in whose heart there is hatred against his brother, and it will be said, leave them and put them off until they reconcile. And this is in Muslim, the hadith number and all of that is there on the slide. So what must we do when there is conflict? What is the basis which we must apply? The basis is this beautiful ayah of Surah An-Nisa, which my brother recited before us when the program began. Ayah number 135, I think it is, of Surah An-Nisa. You know, very recently in Harvard Law School, this ayah was put up in Harvard Law School, displayed. And they said that this ayah is an ayah which is the best example, the finest example of justice. Who is doing this? In Harvard Law School. People are not even Muslim, but they take from the Quran and ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they display it in the law school, and they said, you want an example of justice, what justice should be? Look at what the book of Allah is saying. Look at what the Quran is saying. They put this ayah up. You know and I know, and I'm sure most of us receive these messages through SMS and WhatsApp and what's not. People buzzing, the airwaves and the radio waves buzzing that Harvard Law School put up this ayah. Harvard Law School put up this ayah. My question is, all those people who were clicking their mice with this ayah, sending it all over the place, how many of us applied this ayah in our lives? Or is it that this ayah is only meant for telling the world what the Harvard Law School did? Or is this ayah, there is a meaning to this ayah in our own lives? Seriously think about that. People who are not even Muslim find a meaning in Islam. What reply are we going to give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we are questioned? And this ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. O you who believe, stand firmly, stand out firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even if it is against your own selves. What is the meaning of saying stand out for justice even if it is against yourself? It means accept your mistake. It means own up the fact that you are the cause of the problem, not your brother. What else does it mean? Standing for a witness against yourself means what? It means accept your mistake. Do not believe that the mistake is always somebody else's. No, my mistake. I am the one who did wrong. And then Allah said, and stand up for justice even if it is against your own parents or your own kith and kin, your own family, whether they are rich or poor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a better protector for both of you. So do not follow the lusts of your heart, lest you may avoid justice. And if you distort your witness or refuse to give witness, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever well acquainted with what you do. As I said, others have seen this ayah and they have said that this is the finest expression of justice that can possibly be done. What should we do with our lives? Now, brothers and sisters, this kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came on Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But believe me, you and I cannot become Muslims until this kalam's nuzul happens into our own hearts. Each one of us, the Quran has to come into our hearts. Only then we can be Muslim. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this easy for us, inshallah. So what are the conditions? I began by saying that every single conflict is resolvable. In my view, there are 5 conditions. Number 1, focus only on pleasing Allah. Why do you want to resolve the conflict? To please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not to gain this or gain that or nothing. First and foremost, please only Allah. Second one, it might sound like a bit of a oxymoron, because we all claim that we want to resolve conflicts. But I think it's very important for us to sit down very quietly and really ask ourselves, do I really want the conflict to be resolved? Seriously, we have to have a genuine intention to resolve the conflict. Do I really want the conflict to go away? Yes or no? Ask yourself this question. Number 3, clear and genuine understanding of your own role. As I said before, the ayat of Allah begins with stand as a witness against yourself. Meaning what? Meaning that more often than not, we are the cause of the conflict. We are part of that conflict. The conflict did not happen despite us, it happened because of us. So own your own role in the conflict. Number 4, genuine desire for justice, not for winning. There is a difference between the two. Please understand this. Genuine desire for justice, not for winning. Not to prove that I was right. No. Justice. Which means that it's eminently possible that what is proven is that you were wrong. Alhamdulillah, no problem. Justice has been established. And number 5, very important, the willingness to break the cycle. The willingness to break the cycle. What is the cycle? The cycle is the cycle of negativeness that happens. I call, you don't answer my phone call. You call, I don't answer your phone call because you didn't answer my phone call. You said salam, you don't reply. When you say salam, I say, why should I reply? When I said salam, he didn't reply. This negativity goes and builds and builds and builds. And I have seen, wallahi, it's so sad to see that. I have seen youngsters, little ones, 8 years old, 10 years old and so on, who will not say salam to the uncle because the father and the uncle don't see eye to eye. La hawla quwwata illa billah. The poison is going into the next generation. The child does not respect his own uncle. The has no meaning. And we know in our religion, the is equal to the father. The uncle is equal to the father. But not when the people have, not in our religion, yes. In our lives, no. Only if the uncle agrees with me. Therefore, willingness to break the cycle. Without these 5 conditions, resolution is not possible. With the 5 conditions, every single conflict in the world, no matter how small or no matter how big, can be resolved. I want to show you a model. And the model is, why do conflicts happen? Conflicts happen because there is a problem which you want to solve. There is a problem which you want to solve. For example, there is this piece of land or something, and the 2 brothers or the brothers and sisters have got a claim on this. So therefore, what actually is the problem definition there? How do we divide this land? That is the problem definition. But what very quickly happens is, because our egos come in, from being a matter to resolve, it becomes me versus you. Me versus you. And that's why the conflict happens. So therefore, what to do? Take it back, redefine it, take it back to what it actually is. What is it actually? It is this. It's not me versus you. It is me plus you versus the problem. So now tell me, if I had to lift this one table, right? And if I had to do it myself, I'm sure I can't do that. Now when I start to lift this table, I find that these two gentlemen come to help me. So now we've got three people. Is the table more easy to lift or more difficult? More easy, because we got 3-4 people working on the same thing, right? That is what will happen to a conflict if you look at it like this. Instead of opponents, you've got partners. What do you want? The conflict to be resolved. What do I want? The conflict to be resolved. It's not between me and you. Both of us want the same thing, which is the conflict to be resolved. So what's the problem? The minute you think about that, the conflict disappears. Now you have a problem solution to arrive at. Right? It's very easy. Just doing that thing in your mind, then that's the key thing. So now if you've got a problem with your brother, you don't have any problem with your brother. Your brother and you have to resolve a problem. There is a table which you have to lift. It's not between me and you. We can't lift the table. The problem is the table. So both of us get on either side of the table, we can lift the table. Simple. And now therefore if you use this definition of mine, the more people involved, is it easier or more difficult? Easier. Easier. The more people involved, the easier it is. It's not more difficult. It's the easier it becomes. Provided you do this mental mind switch. Let me tell you that I am not talking theory here. I am talking of actual practice. I have practiced this thing and that's how I arrived at this. I have done this in different countries with different problems, different conflicts which people thought was impossible to solve, and we solved them in minutes. Conflicts which had been going on for years, we managed to resolve them in minutes. How? By getting people to come to this simple understanding, it's not between me and you. Both of us have a problem which is causing trouble for both of us. Let us get together and solve the problem. It's as simple as that. It's not me versus you, it is me plus you plus you plus you plus you versus the problem. So now let us accept facts. What are these facts? Number one, conflicts continue because both sides benefit from the conflict situation. Whether you like it or not, this is the reality of life. Take any conflict in the world. The 2 parties or 3 parties or 10 parties who are in that conflict, they are all benefiting. There is sometimes material benefit, sometimes there is psychological benefit. There is obviously no spiritual benefit, but other benefits. Right? You got somebody coming and saying, oh, you know, Mr. Mukhtar Maruf, really this person is really a bad person, you know, you are so nice and so on, so now he is getting some positive strokes. And the same person goes to the other one and he says, you know what, that Mr. Mukhtar Maruf, he is a very bad man. Yeah? He is the one who is the problem. So these people play this game both ways. Yeah? People play this game both ways. And that's why the hadith about the qattat. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said the qattat will not enter Jannah. Who is the qattat? The one who plays this game. Who takes something from here and goes and puts it there, and then he takes it from there and puts it here, and he promotes these kinds of conflicts. So number one, conflicts continue because both sides benefit from the conflict, and that's why you want to resolve the conflict, you have to own up this fact. Yes, both of us are benefiting, and this is a negative benefit. It's not really a benefit. It's a nasty thing. So let's get that out. Number two, accept that breaking the cycle is neither easy nor painless, but it's essential to break it. If you don't like your mother-in-law, you have to go and hug your mother-in-law. You got a big problem with mother-in-law, go hug your mother-in-law. Right? Make the best food for her. Serve her. Go and you know, in my country, the old people, they like to have somebody pressing their legs and so on. So go do all that. Right? I always tell people, one or two things will happen. She'll start loving you, or she will die of shock. One of the two. Both, as far as you are concerned, both are good for you. Yeah? Right? So, breaking the cycle is a... either here or there. You benefit both ways. Right? You benefit both ways. The thing is, breaking the cycle is very important. Very, very important. And that breaking of the cycle will happen if you get your ego under control. If you say, oh, but I am this great person and so on, how can I talk to somebody? Nothing will be resolved. No. So, break the cycle of conflict. And third, very important thing to convince yourself is that harmony will be genuinely beneficial. And it is worth the trouble. Whatever that pain of breaking the conflict is worth the trouble to get that harmony. And then go and act. As I told you, at the end of this lecture, I want you to act. I want you to pick up your phone. I want you to go drive to the house of the person who never visited till today. Go and visit. Right? Even if it's late. This part of the world your visiting starts at 11 o'clock in the night. So I think that's fine as far as you're concerned. There's a very nice book that I recommend that you read. It's a book on transactional analysis by a chap called Eric Berne. It's called Games People Play. In transactional analysis TA we talk about two ego states. The adult egos, three ego states, parent, adult and child. And conflicts happen usually when people are operating either from the parent ego state or the child ego state. Both of these ego states is where you export your responsibility. It's I am not responsible. He made me sad. She made me mad. Always somebody else's problem. Somebody else did this to me. The adult ego state is where you own responsibility for yourself and you say, my feelings are my feelings. Nobody can make me sad, glad, bad, mad. I decide to become sad, glad, bad, mad depending on what he or she did. If a person, I always tell people, if somebody calls me a donkey, right? Then obviously what does it mean? It means that he never saw a donkey. Because I never saw a donkey looking like me. So if the person says you are a donkey, well, best thing to do is to take him and show him a donkey and say, well, here is a donkey, and here I am, what do you think? Is there any, at least donkeys don't wear turbans, so at least there is no there's no resemblance, yes? So the key thing is that if we own responsibility for ourselves, conflicts happen because we fall into these games, and therefore people, you made me do this, you hurt me. And then they play the other game, which is they create traps, and then the person falls into the trap and they say, got you now. Right? Now I can do unto you what you have been doing unto me. And such people, if you tell them something, their response starts with yes but. Yes but means what? It means they are not going to do it. They are not going to do it. They didn't even listen to whatever you said until that time, because I always say the truth starts after the but. And the last thing which the people do, the game they play, is they tell you what you should do. They say, why don't you do this? So why must I do it? It's your problem. So games people play. Read the book. So what must you do then in a conflict situation? And once again, the best speech is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Allah said, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ اِدْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا. This is the condition. Who will be able to do that? وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the meaning of which is the good deed and the evil deed cannot be equal. So what do you do? Respond to the evil with something good. Don't respond to evil with evil. Fire does not put out fire. For fire you need water. And be patient and have sabr. And then what will happen? See the result which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the one who was your enemy will become your closest friend. Your closest friend. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, but none is granted this except those who have sabr, who are patient. And none is granted this except the one to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a great deal of, that's a great bashara, great portion of happiness in the hereafter. But this happens only if we own responsibility for ourselves. You stop reacting. Remember, if you are reacting, you are like a puppet. Somebody else has the string in their fingers. And as they move, you move. So what must you do? Cut the strings. Say, no, I'm not a puppet anymore. You can't play games with me. You can't make me do this and that. I will decide what I want to do. And that I will decide that based on what? What pleases Allah. What pleases Allah. So what to do? We know the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said, do not decide on a matter until you have heard both sides of the story. And he said, even if a man comes to you who has only one eye, and he comes and complains about somebody else and says that that man put out my eye, he blinded me, and you can see that the man is blinded. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, even then do not believe him. Go and check the story, because maybe this one was the aggressor and maybe he blinded that man in both eyes. And as a result of this fight, he got blinded in one eye, but he's the one who started it, and he has done more damage to the other person. So go and check that story, even if the evidence seems to be the same. I remind myself, when you ask this question, today we live in a world where we are so eager and so ready to believe anything negative about somebody. Anything negative. First and immediately we believe that. But positive things, we will ask 10 questions, then we believe it, but there's always a doubt. Really, can this person be so good? But if you say it's bad, yeah, must be, We're so eager to believe the worst about each other. La hawla quwwata illa billah. Really, we seriously must ask ourselves this question. So hear both sides of the story. Number 2, show WIIFM to both parties. There is one FM station that the whole world listens to. What's that station? WIIFM. Many of you know the meaning of that, right? What's in it for me? Why must I agree? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? People respond to something which they see benefit in. So show them the benefit. Show them the benefit. Third thing, be fair and just. Be fair and just. Because we are answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we saw from the ayat of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who is speaking the truth. He knows who is playing games. He knows who is manipulating. He knows who is being fair and just. And therefore, be fair and just. And check your niyyah. We need to check our niyyat frequently. Because you may have begun with a good intention, but Shaytan comes in between and hijacks that intention. So even though the intention to begin with was correct, but later on it gets ruined. So frequently check your intention, because nothing pleases the Shaytan more than conflict. And again there's a hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam about this, where Shaytan takes account from his murideen, and he asks one fellow, what did you do? He said, I did this. Okay. Another one, what did you do? And then one of them comes and he is lame in one leg, and he says, I created a conflict between a husband and a wife. And of course, it applies to all kinds of conflicts. He says specifically husband and a wife. And Iblis says, no, come, you come and sit next to me. He honors him, because you are the best one, because you are the one who's created the maximum amount of damage. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. We ask the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Shaytan, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to clean our hearts. My brothers and sisters, when will you do all of this? We will do all of this only when the Jannah becomes real. We know from the Sunan Abi Dawud, the famous hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Abu Umama radiallahu anhu narrated, he said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I guarantee a house in the surroundings on the outskirts of Jannah for a man who avoids quarreling, even if he is in the right. Even if he is right, he still does not insist on that right. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I guarantee a person a house in the middle of Jannah. for someone who does not lie even if he is joking. Conflicts are based on lies. And he says, I guarantee a person a house in Jannah, in the upper part of Jannah, for a person who made his character good. The question is, how real is Jannah? We all know all of this stuff, intellectually. Right? We all believe in Jannah. It's part of our Aqidah. We all believe in Jannah. We all believe in the Day of Judgment. We all believe in the other place which we don't want to go to, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may protect us from that. But how real is that belief? How real is that belief? That is the question. How real is it? And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us about the Jannah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the ayat of Surah Al-Waqi'ah, السابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين على سرر موضونة متكئين عليها متقابلين يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخيرون ولحم طير مما يشتهون وحور عين كأمثال اللؤلؤ المكنون جزاء بما كانوا يعملون. And so on and so on, and all the ayat all the way up to the 40th ayah. I don't want to take your time. Alhamdulillah, read in Surah Al-Insan, in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, and so on. Such beautiful descriptions of Jannah. And then of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that فَلَا تَعْلَمُ نَفْسٌ مَا أُخْفِيَ لَهُم مِّن قُرَّةِ أَعْيُنٍ جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Allah says, I have kept it hidden. And if my slave could see, it would be a coolness of his eyes. So all of these descriptions are there, but the description does not do justice to the actual reality which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps it. But how real is it? And for that I want to end with a story from the seerah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the story is about a Sahabi by the name of Abu Dahdah. Not Abu Darda, Abu Dahdah Al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. And the story is that there was a young yatim boy, young orphan boy, who used to come and he used to be around Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one day he came and he was crying. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, what happened, why are you crying? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I have a small piece of land which belongs to my father, and I wanted to put a boundary wall around this. But there is a tree which belongs to another person who is also a Muslim, and he has a huge garden next to mine, and this tree is in the way. So he said, I went to this person, I said, can I take my wall around your tree? He said, no. So he said, okay, then will you sell me your tree? It's a date palm. He said, will you sell me that tree? Because this tree is in the middle, I can't take my wall around it. If I can't take my wall around it, I have to cut the tree, but I can't cut your tree, so will you sell the tree to me? He said, no. It's my tree. So this boy now, he is stuck, because he won't let him build the wall, he won't sell him the tree. So he said, what do I do? So he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he started crying. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, call the guy. So they called the man. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, why don't you sell the tree to this boy? He said, I will not sell it, it's my tree. I'm talking about how real is the Jannah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to the man, he said, why don't you sell the tree to me and I will guarantee you a tree in Jannah? Now think about this. What is the meaning of saying, I guarantee you a tree in Jannah? Will the man have a tree in Jannah while he is in Jannah? No. I guarantee you a tree in Jannah is the bashara of Jannah. Yes? So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, sell me this tree, and in exchange for this tree, I will guarantee you a tree in Jannah. This man is a Muslim. He is one of the munafiqun. He is a Muslim. He said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I am not interested in all that. I will not sell the tree. And he walked away. That's the reason I am saying to you, my brothers and sisters, having intellectual knowledge means nothing. It has to be in the heart. How real is Jannah? Every single person in this room believes in Jannah. Question is, how real is it to you? And how will we know how real? By what happened in the story now. Listen to the story. This conversation is happening, and Abu Dahdah radiallahu anhu is sitting there in a corner somewhere, and he is watching this thing going on. And this man walks away. Abu Dahdah al-Ansari came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, if I buy that tree for you, will you guarantee me the same thing? He said, if I buy that tree for you, will you guarantee me the same thing? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yes. He said, yes. So Abu Dahdah left, and he went chasing that man. By that time the man is in the middle of Medina, in the middle of the market. So he stopped the man, and he said to the man, who am I? You know me? He said, yes, of course I know you. Why are you asking? He said, no, tell me, who am I? He said, you are Abu Dahdah. He said, what do you know about me? So the man said, you're playing a game. He said, no, what do you know about me? He said, I know about you that you have the best, the most valuable date palm orchard in Medina. You have 600 bearing trees, and you have a beautiful well of sweet water in the garden, and you have your house there and you live there. This is knowledge. Everyone knows this. Who is Abu Dahdah? The man who owns this garden of 600 trees, and they are the best variety, and they are all fruit bearing, and this beautiful well of sweet water and the house. Abu Dahdah said, yes, I am the man. He said, by now there's a crowd collected around these two people. Abu Dahdah said, I want to do a deal with you. He said, what's the deal? He said, will you sell me that date palm which Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked you about? Will you sell me that one tree? I will give you my whole garden. Will you sell me the one tree for 600 trees? The man said, you're crazy. He said, are you crazy? He said, what are you talking about? He said, you're playing a game with me. He said, no, I'm not playing any game. I'm asking you a straight question. Will you sell me that tree in exchange for my whole garden? With the well, with the house, everything. The man said, you're serious? He said, yes, I'm serious. He said, you're sure? He said, I'm sure. He said, deal. I sold the tree to you. Abu Dahdah radiallahu anhu said to all the people, he said, all of you are witness, this man has sold me that one tree for that whole garden. People are amazed. Everybody's jaw drops. He said, what is happening? What's wrong with Abu Dahdah radiallahu anhu? He said, sold. Then what does he do? He goes to his garden. He stands outside the gate and he calls out to his wife. He says, Ya Dahdah, come out of the house. Come out of the house. My brothers and sisters, listen to this story. He said, come out of the house. She comes out. He said, what happened? He said, I just did a deal. So what deal? He says, I sold this garden in exchange for one tree in Jannah. He said, I sold this whole garden for one tree in Jannah. You know what his wife says? She says, fantastic, what a bargain. She says, what a bargain. She doesn't say, you're crazy, what's wrong with you? You don't know how to handle money? One tree? No. She said, subhanallah, what a bargain. What a bargain. So he says, Ya Dahdah, come out of the house, bring the children, we walk. Don't take anything. She's coming out of the house, my brothers and sisters, listen. She's coming out of the house, a small child, he's got 2 or 3 dates from the garden in his hand. What will he have? A small child in a date garden, what will he have in his hand? He has got 2 dates in his hand, he's eating one. Dahdah takes those dates and throws them back, takes it out of his mouth and throws it and says, we sold that to Allah, don't eat it, come. Says, what a bargain. They go to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Dahdah said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I bought the tree for you. I bought the tree for you. Now tell me, what you told me is true. I will get my tree in Jannah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to him, Abu Dahdah, you know, when I promised you the tree, there was one tree. But he said, now when I look, there are trees in your Jannah, all over the Jannah. He said, hundreds and thousands of trees in your Jannah. Ajib. My brothers and sisters, the Sahaba were the Sahaba not because of the amount of knowledge. Wallahi, today there are people maybe some of you sitting in this room, who know more than the Sahaba knew. In terms of amount of knowledge you know more than the Sahaba knew. There are many Sahaba who are not Hafiz Quran, but many of you are Hufaz of Quran. There are many Sahaba who did not know the number of hadiths that you and I know. There are many Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in who did not know all the daqaiq of the masail of fiqh. But what they knew was real to them. What they knew was real to them. They acted on it. It was in their hearts. And that is why those hearts were together. They were one. They were one. They didn't have divisions. They didn't have fights. They had difference of opinion. They had lots of differences of opinion, but those differences of opinion, those conflicts resulted in greater and greater brotherhood. Did not result in breakages. Why? Because Jannah was real to them. And that's why I ask you this question: how real is Jannah? My brothers and sisters, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with this gathering. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with all of you for coming here. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our gathering here for His sake. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with and reward us for all the khair in whatever I have said. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me for any mistakes that I made. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.